Alright. Jarvan for reveal. Alright, just for you guys, we'll actually look at these new cards. When you attack, pay my cost to summon me challenging the strongest enemy. Woo! So he's basically a burst speed attacker. That's the idea. He's a burst speed attacker. Which we've thought about before. We haven't really seen that. But it means you can open attack while using the mana for this, you know, like denying them an action. That's super cool.
Hey, brothers and sisters.
That's a big deal, by the way.
Away with you.
And he's an elite? Yeah, he's an elite too.
My God! For Demacia!
There really is some serious animation power creep happening here. Alright, round start, create a fleeting Cataclysm. That sounds like it might be quite a thing.
Such providence to be blessed.
King Jarvan III. Whoa. Okay, so this is a follower. And it tutors, so it's a 7 mana. So it's like a boat from one of the Bilgewater champions. 7 mana, draws Jarvan. But if it's in play, give allies Challenger and Scout this round.
I am only what you made me, Father. With me, Knights of Demacia, for the king!
Hang on, I missed it. An ally starts a free attack, challenging an enemy. Wait, what? 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 So this is, it's like a single combat, kind of? It's basically a spell that causes a single ally to attack, and they get to choose what to challenge. So it's very similar to single combat, but it procs like on attack effects too. That's so interesting. Wow. There's a lot of Demacia cards that will proc that on attack effect. Alright. This is pretty cool. Let's go ahead and actually look at the cards, break them down a little bit, and see what other support cards we've got going on here. So, Jarvan's Cataclysm being his champ spell. King Jarvan III, we already saw that one. Let's go ahead and check out these last 6. Gallant Rider. 4 mana 4/4 elite. The first time I challenge an enemy, transform me into Vanguard Cavalry. I don't think we've seen that one. Golden Aegis, 4 mana. Give an ally barrier this round and rally. So it's effectively a relentless pursuit that costs 1 more for the ability to give barrier. That's very interesting. I don't know if that would be worth it. It's the 5/5 tough. Oh yeah, Vanguard Cavalry is the 5/5 tough. Oh, that's very interesting. These cards are cool. There's a lot of ways we can use these. Just scroll down. Yeah, I guess we can see them all at once. I like the way you guys think. Honored Lore. 2 mana 3/2. The first time I challenge an enemy, give me barrier this round. So basically a lot of these cards are dependent on Challenger without being able to give it to themselves. This is really good design. It makes a lot of sense, of course, because that means we can combine it with Renekton. They have the same criteria, right? Where Renekton gives things vulnerable, this Demacia package will give things Challenger, and they both need to challenge enemies to work. Okay, grant an ally +1/+1 as a... Huh? Wait. This card is fascinating. Battlefield Prowess. 1 mana, grant an ally +1/+1. So I can tell you right now, this card is going to look kind of bad to some of you guys. And I can tell you, it's going to be bad in almost every deck. Battlefield Prowess is very considerable in exactly one kind of Demacia deck. Do you guys know the kind of Demacia deck I mean? You know. You know. Alright, Penitent Squire. When I'm summoned, if you behold an elite, create a Tattered banner in hand. And Tattered banner is the 1 mana burst. Next time you summon an ally this round, give it challenger. Wow. That is pretty powerful. So Penitent Squire is basically, it's like a Cythria of Cloudfield, but instead of having the elite tag herself, she has the ability to kind of like synergize with elites more by being, you know, if you play her after turn 1 in an elite deck with an elite on board, usually you get this free card, which is a grant. This is permanently giving something challenger. Next time you summon an ally this round, to give it challenger. And that's pretty powerful. I have to say, with Gallant Rider is kind of crazy. Getting the Vanguard Cavalry. So Vanguard Cavalry is the 5 mana, 5/5 tough elite. Getting that early is a really big deal, right? So when we can get that on turn 4, it's kind of huge, right? That's a very, very big, and that's part of like what made Remembrance good, but this is obviously 4 mana, whereas Remembrance is 6. So Gallant Rider is pretty crazy in elite decks. Like, even when it whiffs the challenge, 4 mana, 4/4 elite is fine in an elite deck. And then when you give this challenger, or when you combine it with vulnerable, it's really good. You can run an elite deck that's just, I'm suspecting, I'm guessing that Renekton isn't really going to be as good here. I mean, there is built-in synergy, so you're supposed to run, like, it's supposed to be a deck that you can build between Jarvan and Renekton tools in a lot of different ways that can look. How it looks to me is a Demacia Allegiance deck with Vanguard Bannerman. It's hard to escape Bannerman because it itself is an elite, and Penitent Squire being another 1 mana 2/2 elite synergy card means we're going to be going wider and cheaper even than before, right? So Bannerman itself is kind of a staple of elites, which means we have to be an Allegiance, and Shurima has the perfect splash for this deck, Exhaust. So the way I see this is basically like, you know, and there's a lot of different ways to build this concept, but between Shurima and Demacia, I like the idea of a Bannerman deck that splashes for Exhaust. And with Exhaust, we have just the ability to trigger these very, very well in trade, like incredibly effectively, right? When we use Exhaust on Gallant Rider in particular, that's pretty crazy. Exhaust might actually, like, it is a little bit redundant with both Rider and Lord, because usually these don't really, like, benefit from minus attacking. So maybe, but you don't want to use Ruthless Predator as well. Plaza? Yeah, and these decks can run Plaza too. But the point is, with elites, you're gonna want ways of giving things challenger now, if you're working with Gallant Rider and Honored Lord. There might be better ways to do it. That'll be pretty interesting. I wonder how bad it would be to splash Shakedown instead. That feels so awkward to me, but it's possible that I could actually see it splashing Shakedown instead, just because the minus attack doesn't work as well from Exhaust with these, and usually elites will have at least one thing that can just tank the 2 damage ping from Shakedown without caring. On Guard is overcosted. You're not running On Guard. I don't think that's happening. So overall, this is a really hard package to evaluate. And I didn't talk about King Jarvan III yet either. When I'm summoned, draw Jarvan IV, which, you know, makes sense. There's, you know, a lot to that. At 7 mana elite, he's very expensive. And if Jarvan IV is in play, he gives allies Challenger and Scout this round, which can be a pretty powerful finisher. He looks a little expensive out of these. Like, Jarvan III does not look as amazing. At 7 mana, he's going to have a really hard time. Like, these are the turns where you could be playing, like, Tiana instead. You can use it with For the Fallen. Yeah, I could see that. Jarvan 3 is just a boat. Yeah, he's a boat. Okay, and then this brings us to Jarvan IV. This is kind of like the most last interesting one we didn't really dissect, which is how much do we value the ability to open attack and just, like, drag Big Boy with our 5/3 barrier challenger on turn 6, right? Because usually the turn 6 play of Demacia decks, and it depends on the Demacia deck, but we can compare this to like developing Cytheria, which is a pretty big deal, right? Like Demacia just, when you play Cytheria, you're getting more value. Giving the opponent an entire action is a pretty risky thing. I think this is especially true against certain decks, like both the current meta right now, for example, can really punish development with stuff like TF and Targon being everywhere. You're gonna want the ability to open attack, and that is kind of holding decks back a little bit. Like, you'll want to be able to do this. J4 works on defense with the attack spell. What, Cataclysm? Yeah, it can work on defense with the attack spell. So you use Cataclysm. It's basically a single combat that can also just like summon your J4 and like slap the barrier too, which is pretty important. Unfortunately, Cataclysm sort of has like, it's sort of bizarre. Normally the way champion spells work is that they're good when the champion is on your board. This champion spell is the opposite. It's best when your champion is in your hand, which is kind of weird and backwards, because most of the time you're going to have this is when Jarvan's on the board. Right? It's not bad when you generate him or when you have him on the board, but it's best when Jarvan hasn't been played yet, right? It's best when it's a main deck's Cataclysm and not a Jarvan's Cataclysm.
It was adamant that eventually we would have dual regent cards. That's why the icon was moved to the corner to allow for this design.
It's possible. I mean, I can't rule that out. So, what do you guys think about Jarvan? I need to sit and think about like how to actually, like, what decks it would fit in, how to build it through. Elites are looking like they could be pretty good. Elites actually do have, they're gonna be close to the point. Elites have actually been a bit underrated, if not meta dependent. Jarvan looks really good, IMO. I think that it's just so hard to undervalue, or it's so easy to undervalue the importance of being able to open attack and get value out of that. That's crazy. Cataclysm is like a worse single combat, but because this has just really, really cool interactions with Jarvan and with some of the other attacks. I like J4. Yeah, he's pretty sweet. And Demacia decks feel like they tend to typically not be like as champion dependent, especially like in elites. You haven't really had like a second champion you needed in that deck, so it does work out fine. This is interesting. I wanna get some initial impressions here, because these ones are not really easy. These ones are cards I have to talk a lot about. Like, I can look at King Jarvan 3 and I'm not really feeling that one for his cost. But all of these other ones feel like they could be very viable. Prowess, I don't think you can really run outside of a Fiora deck. You could use Cataclysm and Scouts for easy MF and Quinn level ups. MF and Quinn level ups, yeah, that's one way you can use Cataclysm. I mean, you're just getting like an extra attack token. Being able to challenge an enemy for free. It can be really nice for MF. You can enter combat for Cataclysm, allows you to trigger attack effects like Shyvana and Renekton. I mean, honestly, Renekton with Cataclysm is really sweet. God, there's so many ways to build this. Renekton with Cataclysm is super sweet. It is. I wouldn't run 4 Rally in Scouts. I don't think Cataclysm works in Scouts. Cataclysm's not a rally. What? Cataclysm is a single combat. Squire Renekton. Just because of the Tattered banner. Yeah, I mean, it's very possible you could blend more of the Shurima package with this. And like, I mean, main decking Predator, I feel like can make a bit more sense. Like, giving plus attack works a bit better with something like Honored Lord. I could definitely see that crossover. But giving up Bannerman in a deck that's supposed to skew elites, I think, is a little too hard. I don't think we can get out of Bannerman. So, like, Renekton, I could see Renekton being the splash, though. Oh, that's so weird. Yeah, there's so many different ways to build these two together. I could see it being like heavy Shurima, light Demacia. It's actually possible it's a blend of both. It's possible it's like heavy Demacia. It's possible that it's heavy elites, or maybe it's possible that we want to go lighter on elites and just focus on like this kind of like challenger and vulnerable synergy aspect, which is overlapping with elites, but we can't really fit in both exactly. And we can use Plaza as well. That's an option. There's so many different ways to build this. This is very, very, very cool. With Rider and Grizzled Ranger, don't Demacia have too many good 4-drops for Bannerman? Not necessarily. I mean, Rider can help a little bit. The thing about Bannerman, though, is Bannerman's not even really a 4-drop. Like, it's a 4-mana card, but you often don't play it on turn 4. Bannerman is best when you have another turn 4 play, so that you can play Bannerman on like 5 or 6 when you have a full board. Usually. It depends a bit on the meta. But they're not really competing as much now. No need to make it allegiance to the Renekton. Man, today's gonna be a fun day. There's so much to break down. When we get other people on and we talk about all the different ways to build this, I think there's gonna be a lot of different takes. Because this is just an extremely versatile way to blend these cards together. And I could see some of these cards actually being pretty interesting. Golden Aegis is really interesting. I could actually see this making more sense than Relentless Pursuit. Like, that's a really big deal. Battlefield Prowess seems bad. Oh, man. So, overall, I can say right now, I don't know exactly how I would build it at the moment. You know? I like Jarvan. Jarvan the 4th looks pretty good. Cataclysm is a pretty strong card. We can use this with MF scouts. We can use this to trigger like free attack effects. Mostly this is for summoning Jarvan on defensive turns, which is pretty good. You will want to try to main deck this card in Jarvan decks, and we'll see how well that works. But it's kind of like a more expensive slow single combat that's able to trigger some valuable effects, which is powerful. King Jarvan III looks pretty overcosted to me. I don't really see that working out. Gallant Rider summoning the 5-mana 5/5 tough. This looks great when combined with either the Challenger or the Vulnerable. I expect this card to be very solid, especially in Elite decks. This will have to be one of the staples of Elites, and this card is good enough that you can definitely, as long as you have sources for the Challenger or the Vulnerable side of its synergy point, you don't have to be running like an Elite deck to run this. What I'm looking at when I see Golden Aegis, now it's incredibly important for you guys to realize with rally cards, they need to be cheap. Every mana counts so much with rally cards, right? And that's why Shunpo is so bad even though it looks so good. If they made Shunpo 4 mana, it would be a little crazy. Like each of these mana points matter so much because the reason why is because rallies are good when the opponent taps under response on their turn. That's what a rally is for. And cheap rallies mean that you can bank mana and the opponent can never tap under. They're never safe. And that's an incredibly important thing. So you need rallies to be cheap. And that's why Citrus Courier and Shunpo look good, but kind of have never really worked. Katarina similarly. Golden Aegis is, for one, it's outside of Nopify range, which matters a little bit. The bigger reason I like Golden Aegis, you guys have to understand, the thing about Relentless Pursuit is that it's a really powerful card that has an incredibly big brick potential, which is like if you're in a mirror or you don't own the board, it does literally nothing at all. Golden Aegis at least gives barrier. This card might end up being better. It's pretty close. It's pretty close on the level. I could see this card overtaking Relentless Pursuit as an option in most decks that are trying for it, which is pretty sweet. Golden Aegis with Tarek? Wait! Does that work? That should work! Wait! That's insane! It doesn't work? It should work! Am I missing something? On the attack token, it'll trigger another rally. It's not going to be infinite. It's not going to be like Fizz's spell, guys. It's not infinite. It's a second rally. I'm not saying it copies infinitely. You guys, a second rally is really good with Tarek. That's what we're talking about. It doesn't need to be infinite to be good. Cloning this once and getting the barrier twice is insane. That's really good. So yes, it won't go infinite because they added a clause to Tarek that stops it from going infinite, but that's still insanely good. Giving Tarek barrier twice and having the second attack with Tarek is like game winning. Like that will literally make Tarek quite a bit better. I'm not saying he's going to be tier 1, but like Tarek decks will kind of have to run this. This will be the way to run Tarek. Now, who knows exactly how good it'll be, but this will make Tarek better than he is right now. And maybe quite a bit better. Who knows? But that's such a big deal. That's such a big deal. That's so huge. And Tarek already kind of wanted to be in Demacia deck, so that's fine. Honored Lord is fine. There's nothing really like in an elite deck where you're trying to like get value out of this challenge package, you'll run it. It's not going to be like an auto include card in Demacia outside of that. So it's pretty good. It's going to completely depend on how good this elite package or this challenger package is. It's similarly to Gallant Rider, but the fact that you'll run it in either or potentially both makes it really good. Battlefield Prowess, as mentioned earlier, I think this card is basically poo-poo, but in Fiora decks, this card actually makes a lot of sense. So the reason this is better than Radiant Strike in some cases is because it's a grant, which makes it permanent, which is a big deal. And never mind, this card is poop. Penitent Squire, like even in Fiora Shen, you're just running Radiant Strike. Like this card just doesn't make sense. Penitent Squire, when I'm summoned, if you behold an elite, create a Tattered banner in hand. So it's a pretty solid card. I mean, 1 mana 2/2s are just good. They'll see play. Like a 1 mana 2/2 is just kind of reliably going to be solid. It's hitting the same package as Gallant Rider and Honored Lord, which is to say you'll run it in any sort of like standard deck. I guess technically Penitent Squire is better than, if we're looking at a non-synergistic deck, like if we're looking at MF Scouts, for example, Penitent Squire is a better version of Cytheria, the 1 mana 2/2 Cytheria, because that deck doesn't use elite synergy at all, but because it does run a couple of elites itself, sometimes if you play it on a later turn, it can get you a free Tattered banner. It's not going to be a big deal, but it's technically an upgrade to little baby Cytheria outside of elite synergy decks. But in elite synergy decks, you'll be running both of these cards, I think. It's hard to say which one will be better, but I don't think it matters because in an elite deck, you'll run both the Squire for the elite payoff, as well as Cytheria, baby Cytheria for the elite tag. Okay, and the banner, you can't main deck this. This is only off of Penitent Squire so far as we've seen. So overall, that's kind of like the initial impressions here. I'm going to be doing the full emote ratings as we talk more in depth about these. There's going to be a lot to break down today. A lot to break down today. It's going to be a lot of fun. Podcast time. We gotta get some other people on this.